20 million. Now, this is 25 million net to the town. To bring 5 million down from an architect, when I did this in Milford, I said, in fact, I had Al Jakunski. I said, Al, let's say we had 30 million. I said, I want to go down to 25 million. He says, okay. I mean, because it's so easy to put everything in, and they do. He's got everything in the world in these plans, but that's because he gets 7% of the cost. Now, if you want him to scale it down, he will. To get to 20 million is simple, okay? Scale down the new Flanders School, replace the geothermal. There's some classes in there for the preschool that they've got going up to 1,250 square feet. Now, in a traditional class, Beth, you know, is 28 by 30, or let's say 30 by 30. That's 900 square feet. If you have 1,000 square foot classroom, that's really nice and roomy. 1,250 is amazing. But work with the architect to scale that one also down and say, we don't want 31 million back to the net to the town. We want 26 million. And he'll do it easily. Geothermal is a big part of it. Now, I can't say that 30.9 million of geothermal is going to come right off the thing, because as soon as you cut that, you've got to put some, depending on what kind of heating system you used, you got to put the boiler in and things like that. And that's about 70,000 for a new boiler. You're still going to have wires and stuff like that, but it's going to be a lot less. So that's the second part of our new modified plan. The third part is close Haynes School, which we just showed you. It's going to be more savings than closing a smaller Niantic Center School. And keep the gym, keep the small gym, the large gym, the cafeteria, the adjacent offices, and storage used by Park and Rec, and I have a slide to show you, and tear down the remaining part of the building and convert to athletic fields. And then, the most important thing is that last item on that thing, phase in the projects to the existing and future bonding schedule. Now, the next slide, you'll see Lily B. Haynes, okay? This is from the architects, so with all the parking, I don't care about the parking, but this is Lily B. Haynes as it stands. If you go to the next slide, you will see what happens if we close down and tear down the rest of Lily B. Haynes, keep that portion of the building. Now, first of all, you're saving 34,000 square feet and maintain both gyms and provide office and storage space for Park and Rec. Now, I've been told by Mark Nickerson that it's going to cost $15 million or something like that to relocate Park and Rec into a place, and I don't know where the place would be, but this makes perfect sense. Number two, the cafeteria, the kitchen, the storage meeting areas, the award ceremonies, you can have workshops for the Board of Ed, which they always need space. They never have enough space. Boards of Ed never have enough space for all their workshops. When they do teacher orientations, not teacher orientations, but workshops and things like that, okay? Now, the best part about this plan is those facilities are available even when school's in session. You got gyms that are available when school's in session. And a lot of this comes from my experience in some of these 8 closings that we did, okay? The remainder of the grounds, if you go to the next slide, here's a mock-up of what you could do with this building. You could have, again, I think, are you on the slide that shows all those different fields and stuff?
The sports complex, the
Yes.
Haynes Sports Complex.
First of all, there's a couple things I want to say. The boiler, the area that we're saving, houses the boiler. The electric feed and the gas feed goes right into this main part of the building. And look at all what you can do with these fields. We also mocked up parking and all this stuff, and my son-in-law over here did a lot of this mock-up. He came up and did original fields. This is what are they called? U14? U14 fields, which are for people.
About 54,000 square feet.
Right. So 54,005 square feet. You also have some free space, as you see up there. I don't know what you would want to do with that. But think about what the Park and Rec could do with this. They would be able to supervise all kinds of activities, and even their summer activities. They would have their offices there, they'd have their supervisors there, and they can run activities right there. You know, and that's out of my league. I haven't even talked to Park and Rec about this. But we did this in one of the towns that I did. They loved it, you know. And there's parking for, I think, 600? Parking, 600? No, what am I talking about? 120 vehicles
Yeah, about 60,000 square feet.
for the parking area. And there's additional, this is the best part. You know how you go to Bridebrook, and I've gone up for my grandson. I couldn't get parking space. I had to go and park right on 156. Here, if there's overflow on a weekend, you've got the community center parking there. I mean, you've got a lot of additional parking space there. But anyway, now how does this work without increasing taxes on the town? Okay, if you look at the next slide, what I did is from the OS that Annie gave me, the first 4 columns are the principal and interest, your current principal and interest debt schedule that came right out of page 24 of your OS, okay? Now, our proposal is to put in a plan at the end of 15-16, which is June 30th. The state will not approve that until July, because it's a long session next year. July of 17 is when they will finally approve the priority listing. And then you can start the projects in 17, 18 and then bond in 18, 19. Now, one of the things I didn't put in here is the short-term financing on notes that you would have. And those are very inexpensive, but that's not in here. I just want to be. But what we would do is divide up the principal and interest payments of 10 million and 10 million. Remember, our plan, our modified plan, is to go with 20 million, not 25 million. But our plan is to take that, and after you do the renovations as new for the old Atlantic Center, and you start some of the foundation work, and you've got $10 million, bond it. And then finish the project the next year. It's a 2-year project to do that project. And then this is what it would cost, and I use 2.5% for interest rates. You've been anywhere between 2 and 3 and stuff like that. I use 2.5. If that scales up, I could do it. You know? But you could see the costs coming down. Now, the important thing to see is in that 4th column, what happens to your debt? And this is off your OS. You've got about $5,600,000 in costs. And the important thing is, I want you to look at that and keep that in your mind, $5,600,000. That goes down, if we didn't do anything, that goes from $5,600,000, and then it slowly goes down, and sometimes big. In the year that we were gonna bond the first NCS, it drops from $5,500,000 to $4,700,000, okay? So that can absorb it. If you go to the very end, the last column, you can see $5,600,000 goes down to $5,500,000. So far, there's no impact. Then that goes into $5,500,000 again. And then with the first $10 million in bonding, you're actually going down to $5,400,000. But now the next time you're bonding the second half of NCS, and you're in the second year of payments on NCS, it goes to $5,600,000. So now for 5 years now, you're still about the same. You will see that the actual jump is when you get to the Flanders. Oh, first of all, in the middle here, I've got $5 million for Haynes. So after you start and finish NCS, I've got $5 million to tear down. It costs $40 to $50 a square foot to tear down a building, okay? So I left about $1,750,000 to tear down the building, and another couple $1 million in that $5 million to renovate fields. And you don't even have to do those all at once. I mean, you could start some fields, you could put some tennis courts in, or whatever you want. And then after you tore down Haynes, because now you've got enough room in both of these buildings to house all the kids, 819 kids. You don't need Haynes at that point in time, because NCS is already now a double school, holding 440, and Flanders, the old school, can hold 440, and building a new school of Flanders doesn't hurt at all, because it's gonna be completely in a different site. So now I want you to take this sheet and compare it to the new plan that the Board of Ed proposed to you a couple weeks ago.
May I call you Philip?
Yes.
Philip, just to clarify on this proposed bonding schedule for the modified original Board of Ed approved plan, you're suggesting that these numbers take into account a reduced cost to renovate NCS as new of $20 million. That's in these numbers, 20 million?
20 million is to renovate as new.
Right.
And build a new addition. Because
Okay.
right now the
As
plan.
opposed to the currently proposed close to 26 million, you're saying?
25 million,
Okay.
yeah. It's a-
Okay, and then also in these numbers is, $40 to $50 dollars per square foot to knock down a large portion of Haynes.
That's in the Haynes.
Right,
number.
and then what does this schedule assume that it costs to build a new Flanders school?
Right, that's 26 million, going down from 31, and this is net. Instead of getting net 31 million from the state, you scale down the project so that you get net 26 million.
So you're saying.
So that's 13 million and 13 million
Okay.
for those 2 years.
Okay, all right.
Now,
I just have one question too.
yep, okay.
You have $50 a square foot for demolition. Does that include the environmental
Yeah,
issues?
that's what, I talked to, I didn't talk to Al Jakunski this time. I talked to Bill Silver of Silver Petrocelli in Hamden, that I've used before, so I called him. And he said, if you go to the 50 level, he says that's with, asbestos and PCBs and all that other stuff. And he says, it could go higher from there, but it's already encompassing, 40 is straight tear down, throw it in the dump. 50 is more cost because of PCBs and asbestos. And we have asbestos, we already know we have asbestos in the mastic that's underneath the floor tiles. In the 80s, East Lyme took out asbestos out of your boiler rooms and most of your pipes and stuff like that, as everybody did, because the state came down hard on everybody. But we didn't take it out of our tiles, and nobody did. Some people do it like in phases. I don't think there's a town in the state of Connecticut that has asbestos out of all their schools, and it's mostly their 9-inch tiles. If you see a 9-inch tile, it's asbestos. If it's a 12-inch tile, it's probably the new vinyl tiles. So now I want you to compare the proposed bonding of this now is not the original Board of Ed plan. The first page that you were looking at is our modified plan, okay? And we're comparing that to the bonding schedule for the new proposed plan that was presented to you 2 weeks ago. You got the same 4 columns, okay? That doesn't change. That's your current debt. And that was from the last OS, so you might have had some other financing that one done last year. But even if that was, it's all relative. It's still going to give you the same variances. Now the cost of Haynes, and you could do this, you could take Haynes and try and divide that up by 2 as well. But Haynes, as we already know, is $6 million more, or $8 million more, without selling NCS. And you still have, and I put in there, the same Flanders school, which starts in 2021-22. But now look at the difference. If you took this sheet and put it over the sheet next to it just to see the last two columns, look at the major difference in the cost to the town. You're going from $5.5 million in 2017-18 to $7.2 million. Now, that could actually be a little bit lower if you phase it into 2 different years. But then the next year, you're gonna just jump right up. But you're talking about anywhere between $5.6 million in our plan to $6.7 million. Now, those 4 years, this is only out 12 years. But I wanted to show you that in the 12th year, 2027, you're almost back down to the $5.6 million you started with. But with the new plan, which costs more, if you look at just 12 years, look at the total, you're paying $78 million for the plan that was proposed to you versus $71 million if you did the original plan by the Vision Committee. Any questions on that? And thank you for your time. I was cut off at the Board of Selectmen before I even could show these. That was a slide I was cut off.
We're more than happy to listen to your presentation.
Thank you. And I've only got 2 more slides, so
Okay,
we're
very
very
good.
close. The advantages to the modified original Board of Ed proposed plan is, 1, this plan, and this comes right off of something from the Board of Ed when they originally approved it. This plan is in the best interest of the children according to the Board of Ed, as previously stated. It's less cost to the taxpayers, 2 schools of equal size, and that's one of the things that in the plan that they developed to you, they said one of the disadvantages was we didn't have 2 schools of equal size. Okay? Both schools will have a high quality outdoor play areas, and that's one of the criticisms of the Haynes thing, is not having good play area. The next advantage is 1.5 schools will be good until the 22nd century. We don't want to go backwards now. Both schools can accommodate additional enrollment growth, so now you've got the growth ability, and that, if you did the other new plan, you would also have the growth ability. So I'm not sure if that's a real advantage, except it's an advantage that 2 schools that are newer can still accommodate growth. The town enjoys additional sports facilities. This town needs sports. I mean, this is not in my area, but I know that we need sports facilities, a lot more sports facilities than we have, because you can't even use the fields. I know there's a flag football team that wanted to go and they couldn't because of one of those fields. The sports community retains use of 4 gyms. And I don't know if it was you, Beth, but somebody said at the last meeting, I want to keep that gym. I mean, we don't, or it was somebody else, I'm not sure, but somebody stated that why can't we keep that gym? Well, this does. You have 4 gyms that you would still have. And guess what? NCS is going to be a bigger, handicapped, accessible gym, but you would still have this other gym that you can use even when school's in session. Park and Rec would now be able to use 2 Haynes gyms during the day. The Haynes gyms, showers, kitchen are all available as shelter during emergencies. Now, somebody said, well, we already have the high school and we already have the middle school that we built for shelters. But what happens when they're in school, because you had to close down school one day, so that you can house those people that were on the shore. But now you'd have a facility, keep school open. The new NCS gym would be larger and handicapped accessible, and the long-term debt remains relatively stable. Now, when I say relatively stable, about year 8 to 12, it goes up by almost $1 million. But you're closing a school and saving, according to them, $820,000. But you're saving a lot of money by closing a school which will easily accommodate the increase in that 8 to 12 year. So this is the last slide. Thank you very much for listening. We're hoping that, and again, this is more geared to you guys, even though Mark told me I gotta send this to the Board of Ed. We're hoping that they'll table the action of the current plan and ask the Board of Ed to review and consider this plan, just consider it, okay? And the most important thing that we're asking is that the Board of Ed put in an EDO 49 application for a building project for all 3 schools. It doesn't hurt to put them all in. They're gonna do a resolution evidently next Wednesday for 2 of the schools. They could put a resolution also in for Niantic Center until people consider all these things. Because if we go with this most expensive plan, we might end up with the town not approving it. And where are we now?
Back to square one.
Yeah. But if you can show them how you can actually do this with new buildings that last into the 22nd century and it works within our schedule, I mean, I don't know how I've learned a long time ago, it doesn't matter how much you say to the people, they're not gonna hear all that. The senior citizens are gonna look at the dollars and stuff like that. When the Park and Rec moves over to here, it gives you the ability to expand the senior center. So that's another advantage I never even thought about, except that could be a selling point to them. The sports community would love this. The seniors, if they got the expanded area, would love it. And the Lila B. Haynes people would not. I mean, somebody's not gonna like this plan, but I think you do have to close the school. And that is my end of my presentation.
Well, I thank you for presenting a unified alternative. Although I'm sure by this point you do understand that we cannot vote on this particular plan.
I understand.
We can only vote on what comes before our board, and we've got a ways to
Right.
go for that.
But if you know people on the Board of Ed or the Board of Selectmen, we presented almost this whole thing to the Board of Selectmen. Mark cut me off.
I was going to ask you if you presented this to the Board of Ed.
No, we haven't. We just put this together on
Okay, so-
June 1st.
So that would actually be the first step.
Yeah.
You know, it's a fine product that you've made,
Right.
and I have no idea how it will be received, but that's
Right.
step one, is really to get this
Our
before the
fear-
Board of Ed.
Our fear is they're gonna say it's too late. But it's not too late to put all 3 buildings in and then cancel the one you don't
Well,
want.
that is the most,
That I think is
agree.
important.
I did have a question for you. In your 30 years of experience with the public schools, you said you've closed 8 elementary schools. Have you
It's
ever?
very hard doing that.
I'm sure it is, and I'm sure this is.
It's worse than redistricting.
Yeah. I'm sure it is. My question to you is, have you ever put forward multiple plans to the state before and had
Oh, yeah,
this exact
yeah.
scenario?
This is common. In fact, it's very common
So
to.
does that affect the reimbursement rate if you put,
No.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It
No, it
doesn't
doesn't,
affect the
no.
reimbursement rate for each, like, say, 3 schools versus
The
putting
only
in
thing
2?
that affects the reimbursement rate is what they call wealth, need, and effort. And that's how wealthy the town is, how much need, and the need is how many students you have in and how many AFDC kids you have. That's in the formula for need. And effort is how much you tax your community.
Mhm.
And that goes into a very, very complicated formula that tells you how much you're gonna get in reimbursement. It has nothing to do if you put 6 projects in or 2 projects in.
Okay.
The year you
Okay.
put those in, you will get the same reimbursement rate for all of them.
It's just like it's a placeholder.
Yeah,
They're all standalone projects.
right. And you don't.
But don't you have to give them plans for those projects? You can
No.
you just
No.
give them a piece
You-
of paper and say, I'm gonna
You're
redo
talking
this
about
school
the application has to be filed before the 30th of June.
Right,
without any plans.
Yeah, because
Everybody
that
thinks-
hasn't really been presented yet.
everybody thinks you have to put a plan in, but it's not the plan. You have to put in an application by each
So when the plan
building.
comes, whatever it is, there.
Now, New London,
For how long?
I
Yeah.
don't have it now.
New
but
London.
New London put in, and they've canceled at least 28 building projects one that was a $30 million one, in the last 7 or 8 years. East Lyme has canceled only 6 in the last 12 years. But you have canceled, and that's what we do. We don't know if we're gonna get approval or anything, so we put it in. We put it in and hope that we're gonna get approval all the way down the line. That's just, it's normal strategy.
Even if they require the plans to be submitted with the applications, NCS is done, Flanders is done, we're waiting on Lily B.
So, anyway, so that's what we're hoping, is that
Okay.
they put it in for all 3 plans. But I'm hoping maybe you guys know somebody in Board of Ed. We would like to, I don't think, it's gonna be very
Got a
difficult
guy.
to us.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very difficult to us presenting at the next board meeting, when they already have it on their action agenda item, to do that. What I'd love to do is meet with any board member individually to show them this and just say, consider this. We know there's 2 people that voted against that new plan.
Have you tried to reach out to Mr. Newton?
I did talk to him. I think he feels it's too late. I mean, that's
Okay.
the sense of it.
Did you talk to
Yeah.
Mark Nickerson?
Oh, he
Individually?
is totally, I hate to say it, but I mean, it's almost like he's got this plan to sell that school, and he's got something in the works for it and all that stuff. It doesn't matter, why spend more money?
I know when we went on the tour, I'm
No,
sorry.
Go ahead, Jason.
And it's difficult because I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole thing. I know the campuses, I know from my perspective, especially Nyack Center and Flanders, are the nicest, but they're the schools with the most disrepair.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like a conundrum because the nicest school has the worst campus.
Yeah,
And in my opinion, I could be completely wrong, but you know.
to be honest, if I had my druthers until they could spend more time on these plans and look at even this, and look at all 3 plans and see what the advantages
Yeah.
are. Delay everything.
Yeah.
And like
For a
you
year.
said, the
Delay.
architect, they design it to the nth.
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting, I'm not
Oh.
saying they're doing it for a percentage, but you know, that's how they get paid. They're not gonna design
Well, they-
economically friendly building until you try to really push them to do that. You know,
Right.
they're gonna design it.
Yeah,
And then you have that other proposal that's out there that we can email.
I guess what
Yeah.
I wish, I wasn't even involved in this. I wasn't one of those parents that came and kept your up
You're
for
a
2
new
hours.
face this evening.
But-
Yeah.
But my wife and my
With
kids
a
and all that,
refreshing demeanor.
They were here. And then I heard from Ann that it was like a 2-hour extra meeting. But they kind of pulled me in. And when I started looking at it, I said, this doesn't make economic sense. And I was trying to stay away from it. They pulled me in, and,
Very good, very good.
but,
Well, does anybody have any,
oh, but my last comment. It would be best to not do anything. There's, and study it for a year and do the minor things. One of the things you get, even if you don't renovate as new, because I don't know if you know what renovate as new means, that everything in the building is extended for 20 years. So you have to do everything in the building, whether it's PA systems, it all has to be done for 20 years out. But, what was I going to say? But windows and roofs are eligible no matter what. You don't have to renovate as new for them. So you can put in for your window projects
Yeah.
for NCS and Lily B. Haynes and Flanders at a minor cost to the town. And that cost, and the only thing is, on a roof, it's gotta be 20 years old, and you've got 2 roofs. Haynes has got 18 and 17 years, so you wouldn't get reimbursement yet on those. So I'd probably say don't do the roofs there, but do the roofs that are over 20 years old, and do the windows. You only get half of your 43% for windows. So you only get about 21.5% for the windows, but you will get it even if you didn't do renovations new. That's an obvious one. I would say if you they did this expensive plan, which is the most expensive plan that's gonna go to you. Don't do anything but do windows and roofs, which encapsulates the school and keeps it, not deteriorating.
I am confident that this board will take your presentation, not lightly, but, consider the comments that you've made, and it will have an effect on our thought process as the Board of Education moves the project forward. So
Yeah.
while we cannot ever approve this plan, because that's not what's coming to us, information such as this would be helpful in us reaching a decision whether we should pass the proposed plan along to a town meeting. So I thank you
And I
for the
got
presentation.
Can I have 2 more comments?
No.
Well, I want to praise Annie because I've seen her work since she's been here. She does a great job. I was in that job for 6 years in Guilford. It's a hard job.
It is a hard
To
job.
work with all the different department heads and all their designs and everything else and all the things that she has to work with. She's doing a great job. This, I forgot what the second one was, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, the second one is, if they brought it back to a committee and designed, and looked at all 3 of those proposals, I would like to be a member of it. Not because I'm a Niantic parent. I got the experience
Mhm.
that could really help them,
Mm.
so. But I mean, you can't do that. I mean, I'd have to talk to Jeff on that one.
Mhm.
Thank you very
Okay,
much for
thank you.
listening to the whole proposal. And I know it's late, so
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. So, does that conclude the public discussion portion of this evening?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Didn't hear that long letter.
I know my throat's still recovering. Okay, thank you. So we'll close the public discussion portion of the meeting, and we'll turn to board comments. We'll start at this end with Bill. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I think we have to review the delegation and the public discussion rules. What I've been told when I was chairman of different boards is you can't engage conversations with people that present. It makes it an agenda item. So now people that have conversations that they want about something on the agenda can't participate. So I'd kind of like to visit what the real rules and requirements are around the public discussions and delegations.
How can we do that, Anna? Can we get a refresher from the policy expert? And where did he come from? Hartford?
Oh, okay.
The town attorney?
Yeah, but the way I look at it is delegations, you can't go back and forth, but you have board comments, and sometimes the public comments and then the board comments can comment back, or they wait because they can't comment back in delegations. And then I've seen similar where there's a discussion going back and forth. I think it's dependent on the subject matter, and I don't know what's right or wrong. I'm just saying I've seen it all kinds of ways.
What we've been told in the past was that if
You
it's
on zoning
if
though,
it's
right?
if it's something that somebody wants to have on the agenda so that people want to participate in the conversation,
To add it on.
then somebody has an opposing viewpoint or has a supporting viewpoint would want to participate in the conversation. So if you take and you put in either one of these 2 sections, and today I think you did a good job on the delegations of saying we're going to just talk about the agenda items, and then the public discussion is about things that aren't on the agenda, but we don't communicate back, we don't ask questions, we don't, I think the town attorney is the one